My uncle shared a video of my family where they referred to me as a worthless burden, even though I've been paying their mortgage for years. They claimed I owed them something. I kept quiet and acted as if everything was normal until the next payment came due. When I received that video, it felt like my entire world flipped upside down. In it, my parents and my brother Thomas gathered around our old kitchen table in Phoenix, discussing me as if I were nothing more than a nuisance. The warm Arizona sun streamed through the windows, creating a stark contrast to the cold words being spoken. My mother said, "Lindsay only helps because she owes us," her voice dripping with disdain, while Thomas added with a smirk, "She acts like she's doing us a huge favor. What a joke." The saddest part was my father silently nodding in agreement. The man who once taught me to ride a bike was now allowing them to criticize me. The shaky video, clearly taken without their awareness, revealed crystal-clear conversations. I watched it 3 times, each viewing filling me with an odd mix of numbness and clarity. For the past 4 years, I had been making substantial payments on their mortgage through my LLC Divine Investments. They believed they were making payments to a bank and never bothered to examine the details of our agreement that my financial advisor had put in place. Each month, they contributed their small share while I covered the majority, all the while hearing their complaints about how little I helped. Uncle Jason's message read, "You needed to see this, Lindsay." I couldn't stay quiet anymore. They have been talking like this for months. Sitting in my home office, I reviewed the spreadsheets that outlined every payment I had made. The numbers spoke for themselves. I had invested over $200,000 in keeping them in their house. Rather than feeling angry, I felt calm as I pulled up the mortgage agreement, remembering the purchase option clause my advisor had insisted on including, perhaps foreseeing something like this happening. The next payment was due in 2 weeks, and for the first time, I knew precisely what I needed to do. I texted my uncle, "Thanks for showing me the truth. Don't worry, I won't let them know you sent this, but things are about to change." Although they would never acknowledge it, I had always been the family's safety net. 4 years ago, when the housing market crashed in Phoenix and they risked losing their home, I stepped in. At 27, I was already thriving in my career as a software development manager, though they disapproved of my career path, wanting me to take over my father's struggling real estate business. My mother would often scoff, "Software is no career for a woman. Your brother Thomas has the real business sense." Ironically, Thomas nearly bankrupted the family company within 2 years of taking it over. When they were in dire need of help, I consulted my financial advisor, Kate. She suggested creating an LLC, buying the house through it, and letting them think they were still dealing with a bank. This way I could assist them while legally protecting myself. It seemed like the perfect plan. Divine Investments LLC became their mortgage lender, and I supplemented their payments without their knowledge, maintaining their dignity while ensuring family stability. Uncle Jason was the only one aware of the arrangement, having overheard Kate and me discussing it. He warned me that they didn't deserve my kindness, but I defended their reputation, thinking they were family. After watching the video for the 4th time, I realized how mistaken I had been. The phrases, "she owes us" and "what a joke" gnawed at me like sharp knives. I logged into the LLC account, preparing for the next mortgage payment due on the 15th. Though they had never been late, I now had no intention of covering the remaining amount. It was time they faced the repercussions of their ingratitude. They had no idea that their daughter, the so-called burden, was actually their landlord. The thought made me smile. Sometimes karma just needs a little nudge. My uncle followed up with more evidence the next day, sending me screenshots from a family group chat where I had been intentionally excluded. They had created it 6 months prior, humorously dubbed Family Finances. Each message felt like another betrayal. Thomas's comment, "Lindsay thinks she's so special with her tech job. She barely helps while I run Dad's business," stung, and my mother's response chilled me. "We should ask her for more money. She's single with no kids. After all we've sacrificed for her, she can't even support her family." I pulled up my financial records, hands trembling slightly as I totaled my contributions. In 4 years, I had put $267,800 toward their mortgage compared to their meager $52,500. They thought their monthly payment of $1,100 to the bank was all there was. They had no idea I was covering the additional $5,400 every month. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother. "Sweetie, could you come to dinner Sunday? We need to discuss something important." I instantly knew they were planning to ask for more money, likely with guilt as a side dish. The prospect of sitting there, feigning ignorance of their true feelings about me, made my stomach churn. I contacted Kate, my advisor, and asked about my options in the purchase agreement. "I had a feeling you might," she replied. "Remember that clause we included? If they miss a payment, Divine Investments can exercise the purchase option immediately. The house will belong to you outright, and they'll become month-to-month tenants." A plan formed in my mind. If they were late on rent, standard eviction laws would apply. Were they really willing to jeopardize our relationship? I replied, "Yes, I'm sure. But I won't tell them anything yet. Let them believe everything is normal for now." I texted my mother, "Of course, I'll come to dinner," looking forward to it, even as I felt an ironic twinge in my heart. The next payment date loomed closer, and for the first time since our arrangement began, I wouldn't catch them when they fell. Sunday dinner turned into an exercise in restraint. I arrived at their Phoenix home at exactly 6 o'clock, the setting sun painting the desert landscape in warm hues. The familiar scent of lasagna floated through the air, my mother's calculated choice, meant to evoke nostalgia. "Lindsay, sweetheart," my mother said, rushing to hug me, revealing a new designer bracelet that must have come from funds they should have allocated for their mortgage. Thomas sat smugly at the dining table, dressed in pressed attire. "Good of you to make time for family," he said, but I couldn't shake the irony. "Of course, I always have time for family," I replied, my voice thick with irony. As my father entered the room, papers in hand, I could sense they were preparing a script for their upcoming pitch. My mother began to outline how blessed they were to have me as a daughter and how their sacrifices had paved the way for my success. "The mortgage has become quite a burden," my father finally stated, invoking his usual authoritative tone that always made me feel small. "We thought perhaps you could help more with the monthly payments." "This is your family home too," my mother quickly added, as if it were nothing. Thomas chimed in, "We're only asking for an extra $2,000 a month. It's not much considering your salary." At that moment, I realized the audacity of their requests, knowing they had no clue that I was already covering over $5,000. "I'll think about it," I said finally, trying to maintain my neutrality. Honestly, I was reveling in what was about to unfold. My brother scoffed at me, "Times are uncertain right now." After dinner, I excused myself to use the bathroom, taking a deliberate detour past my father's study. Their hushed conversation echoed in my ears. Thomas said, "She's not going to help," followed by my father sharing that they had found investment documents in my cloud storage. They had snooped through my files during my last visit. My carelessness had cost me dearly. "That LLC has been doing well," my father continued. "She's been hiding money from us instead of helping her family. They plotted to use my past vulnerability against me. If that doesn't work, we could always reach out to her company's HR department," Thomas suggested casually, discussing their plan to tarnish my career. The realization hit me hard. These weren't family members, they were parasites disguised as loved ones. Returning to the dining room, I understood I needed to play my cards carefully. "Actually, I have given it some thought about helping more with the mortgage," I said, meeting my mother's gaze. "I will have an answer for you in about 8 days. I knew they wouldn't anticipate that the eviction notice had already been drafted. "Why such a specific timeline?" Thomas asked, frowning. I smiled, gathering my purse. "Just need to confirm a few things with my financial advisor." As I drove home, I called Uncle Jason, expressing my solidarity. "You were right about them." I'm done being silent. It's time for the final act. The week crawled, with my family ramping up their pressure for help. I forwarded their desperate texts to Kate, and she confirmed that once they missed their payment, we could exercise the purchase option. 2 days before the payment was due, my mother called, needing to know my answer. "Don't worry, Mom. You'll see clarity soon." That evening, I received an alert from the bank. They tried transferring funds, but their account bounced due to being overdrawn. I smiled at Kate's encouragement to initiate the process. I chose to let them stew for 2 days, knowing they were unaware their lives were about to change. On the payment day, at 9 a.m., The automated system sent out its default notice. Moments later, my mother's frantic voice filled the line. Something's wrong with our mortgage. Payment. Actually, Mom, I replied, calm yet firm, Divine Investments is my LLC, not a bank. The silence was deafening. Check your email, I advised. They would find the notice stating the house was now legally mine, and they were now month-to-month tenants. This can't be happening, she whispered. How did you? Uncle Jason showed me everything, I interrupted. Their stunned silence was a sweet vindication. Your first rent payment is due in 30 days, and I suggest you start looking for a new place. Lindsay. My father's voice broke through. Ungrateful. Is that any way to address your landlord? I cut him off. The eviction notice is ready. Don't provoke me to serve it sooner. I ended the call and quickly blocked their numbers as my phone filled with messages from relatives expressing their outrage. 3 months later, standing in the now empty house, I recalled the moments that brought me to this point. My family had moved out the previous week, unable to manipulate or challenge the inevitable. Thomas's attempts to sabotage my career blew up in his face, while my mother's final bid for sympathy fell on deaf ears. As I prepared to sell the house, I smiled at the thought of establishing a foundation to aid victims of financial abuse. My phone buzzed. Heard from their lawyer. They're finally signing the last papers. I soaked in the emptiness of the house one last time. They had taught me that family always comes first, but forgot to specify which family I would choose. One that empowers, not degrades. And for the first time in years, that felt right.